midnight screams.
I thought I should share my story of how my dead neighbor was calling out to me. I hope you enjoy. I was your common 8/9-year-old living in a common crappy neighborhood. We had a crappy trailers for homes, crappy furniture, you name it. But me and my family was fine with it. We thought we had the perfect life. Well, at least they did. They didn't experience much of the paranormal stuff as I did, and I'm thankful that they didn't. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy either. Everything I went through left me with a sensation of fear and worry. I've spent my whole life wondering if it will ever happen again, which I hope it doesn't. Back to when all of this started. I lived a walking distance from my aunt's house, and I would go almost every day to her house just to hang out with my cousins. But most of all, because back then I didn't have Wi-Fi in my house, and so I would always go to her house in order to use her Wi-Fi. I know you're probably questioning, what is an 8-year-old doing with a cell phone? Well, my parents would work a lot, which meant that I had to stay home alone most of the time from 5:30 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. I would sometimes go and stay at my cousin's house, but I would have to later come back and live the same nightmares. But anyways, this all started one day when I was coming back from my cousin's house, and I was on my way to mine's. I saw the old White House that looked abandoned. I never really thought anything about it until now that I was old enough. I always thought it was empty. Later at dinner, I asked my mom, "Is anyone lived there?" She answered with a, "Yes, Mija. From what I know, there is an old lady who lives there." I was surprised because the house always looked empty. It was ridiculously dirty from the outside, which would make you think that it was empty. The only thing that looked appealingly me as an 8-year-old was a swing that hung up from one of the mango trees the lady had. A few days passed, and I still couldn't stop thinking about that house. There was something about it that made me want to go in. I don't know if it was me wanting to know who or what lived inside. As usual, I was coming back from my cousin's house, and I stopped at my tracks and started thinking about the old lady that supposedly lived there. If there was someone actually living there, then people would come and visit sometimes, right? I started wondering if she had kids. Did she have a husband living with her? Or was she just completely alone? I got out of my thinking zone and paid all my attention to the song hanging from the tree. It looked old and rusty, as if nobody's has swinged on it for a long time. I gathered up all my strength and decided to go and ride the swing. At first it was a little hard because of how rusty and old it was, but I got used to it. I swung and swung. It was fun until I looked up, and I could have sworn I saw someone's eyes through the curtains watching me. I was sure that someone was looking at me while I was in the swing. I decided to get off because I got a little creeped out and went home. A few days passed, and I forgot about the incident with the swing. I was just focusing on school and on me. One night, my parents invited my family over to eat. After they left me and my family got ready to go to bed, I remember this night as if it happened yesterday. I saw something, more like someone. It was hard to see. I could only see it vividly. I could finally make out what it was. It was an old lady. I wasn't scared, though. She gave me a comfortable sensation, just like the one my grandma gave me when she hugged me. But she wasn't hugging me. I could just feel her warmth next to me. I woke up and immediately remembered the old lady from last night. I remembered the comfort she gave me and how she made me feel safe with just a simple glance. I started thinking and wondering who she was. I have never seen her before. I probably have, and I just don't remember. I did whatever I did that day. Nothing much, just waited for my parents to get home from work. The day went on by fast, and when I least expected it, night came upon me and it was time to go to bed. I did my night routine like always. I got my snack and my glass of milk. Sometimes my snack was chopped up apples, maybe some grapes, whatever could fill up my stomach for the night. Later on, I would drink my glass of milk, I would go brush my teeth, and off to sleep I'd go. This night was a little different from the others. I struggled a lot to go to sleep. I don't know why. When I was finally dozing off to sleep, I could have sworn I saw the old lady again. The one from my dream last night. It's just that I'm just not sure if it was a dream tonight. As I said before, I saw the old lady again today. The first few minutes, she just stared at me like yesterday, but there was something different about her. The comfortable vibe I got from her wasn't the same. She wasn't the same caring lady from yesterday. There was something that was off. I couldn't make out what it was. About a minute later, I noticed that she started moving her mouth. Was she trying to talk to me? I think this has to be my favorite day of the year. The first cold front coming through after an oppressively hot summer along the coast is a blessed change. A far cry from the 100% humidity we cope with every day. The air has a crisp quality that makes me want to spend the entire day outside. As evening set in, getting darker earlier and earlier as the year goes forward, I clicked on the lamp beside the couch, wrapped a light blanket around my legs, and settled down to read the latest novel by my favorite author. The wind was whipping hard outside. I could clearly hear it, but somehow it gave me comfort. I was barely past the latest chapter when the light from the lamp flickered. The way the wind was blowing, it came as no surprise that we may lose power or at the very least have it blink in and out. So I wasn't fazed. I got up and lit candles around the house, just in case. When I sat back down with my book, I stared at the page. I couldn't remember where I left off. I flipped back a couple of pages, and nothing seemed familiar to me. It was as though I was reading the words for the first time. I tried to think of the last thing that I could remember from the story and flipped back to find it. It was several chapters back. I shrugged it off. I attributed it to a sort of dissociative state. Everyone has those from time to time. Like when you're driving home after a long day and zoning out, then suddenly realize you're nearly home. It had to be something along those lines. No harm, no foul. Just pick up from where I left off. I made it about 5 pages before the lights flickered again. So I got up to light candles, just in case I lose power. But there are candles lit. I don't remember doing that. I walked through all of the rooms and each one had a lit candle. I could tell by the amount of wax melted that they weren't lit long ago. You would think I will remember lighting them. As I crossed into the kitchen, I saw the lamp in the living room flicker. I looked around the kitchen and couldn't remember what I came in here for. Maybe a cup of tea on a cold, blustery night. I filled the kettle and set it on the burner, then headed back to the couch while I waited to hear it whistle. I decided to text my best friend, Stacy, and tell her about my strange night. I told her about not remembering the book, not remembering lighting the candles, and that I still don't know why I went to the kitchen, but a cup of tea sounded nice. She got back to me, asking if I had been in any sort of accident, if I had taken a tumble and hurt my head, or anything that could account for the memory loss. I told her I hadn't, that it had been an uneventful day at home and nothing of note happened. She told me to let her know if anything else happened, that she was worried about me, and I said I would. As the kettle whistled, I set down my phone and went to make a cup of tea. I curled up back on the couch while my tea steeped on the end table, next to the lamp. After about 2 minutes, I reached for my tea and the lamp flickered. I picked up my cup and blew on it as my phone chimed that I'd gotten a message. It said it was from someone named Stacy. I don't know anyone by that name. I opened the message and read it. It said she was just checking on me. This makes no sense. I scrolled up. There were messages back and forth between us, and it went on and on and on. I made my way back to where she says she is checking on me and read what was written right above it. It said that I have been having trouble remembering things, but that I have no idea what could have caused it. This is really starting to freak me out. Then the lamp flickered. Charles was a good neighbor. Even though our adjoining apartment wall wasn't very thick, insulated, or even solid in a few spots, I never heard noise from his place louder than a murmur from a TV. He didn't have a noticeable odor. When one caught a glance inside his door, it looked well-kept and pest-free. Best of all, on the last Saturday of every month, he brought everyone on our floor a plate of home-baked goodies. Maybe it was one of our neighbors who called the police. We all looked forward to those still warm muffins. He didn't come around that month, though, and suddenly we were talking around the mailboxes about the last time anyone had actually seen him. It was probably the building supervisor who called in retrospect. That man would procrastinate like no one's business when came to fixing a heater or pipe, but miss payment by a day, and he was a constant presence until you came up with every last cent. And it was on the afternoon of the 2nd that the police knocked down Charles's door. His place was pristine. Nothing of note was found. He had no pets to make a mess in his absence. No food or even dirty dishes were left behind. I heard he even made his bed with hospital corners. There were no leads to be found, but clearly, Charles was gone. There aren't any cameras in the area. It's not that kind of place. His job hadn't seen him in over a week, and his car sat unassumingly in the parking lot until the manager had it towed. No one knew where he had gone, but agreed that he had been a good neighbor. I wish I'd been a better neighbor. I never bake. Sometimes my garbage piles up, and sometimes my noise level gets higher than I intend. The noise is what really makes me a bad neighbor, though by the time they check in my apartment, the smell will be a contender. Charles heard the sounds of distress, and as a kind member of the community came to check on me. I wish he hadn't, but I'm a little girl living alone, and most men feel they need to check on me. It has made me a bad neighbor to 9 different men and 3 women. I wasn't in distress, number 34 was. I don't care for their names or identities. It's not hard to lure men to my place. Sometimes it's just a hookup. Sometimes they are ill-concealed predators. But it's never hard. I prefer men, but I'm not too picky. 27 men and 7 women had willingly followed me to their end. I don't count the neighbors, they have names. I have reasons, sure. A psychologist would have a great time delving into my trauma, but I don't like to think that way. I take responsibility for my own actions. I like the exchange of power. They always think they can take control of me. They always look surprised when I show them who is really in charge. It is much more satisfying to watch the struggle turn to panic, turn to resignation. But it is louder than restraints or drugs. It's my fault Charles heard muffled screams and wild thumping. It's my fault he knocked without a response, only to keep hearing those sounds. It's my fault that I hadn't locked the door in my haze of anticipation. Poor Charles. He was so innocent, truly wanted to help. So he called out to me as he made his way to my spare room. I may not have noticed otherwise. I was entranced with watching each vein and ligament as I sliced through ever so slowly, one at a time, detaching a finger, his ring finger where his gold wedding band had glimmered accusingly at him as he flirted all night. But I did hear him, and in his shock he wasn't even hard to catch. I don't like hurting people with names. I shushed him gently as I firmly sliced his neck, making sure it was fast. I knew they'd come looking for such a sweet guy. My own place would be far from free of noteworthy things, but I don't look suspicious, so there was plenty of time to pack my belongings and quietly move again. I never use my real name, of course. I never rent places that would check any of the information given on a rental agreement. I change my hair drastically each move, and due to part of that trauma I mentioned, I don't have to worry about fingerprints. Perhaps it's foolhardy to leave like I do, but no one cares about me. Not even the police. No one will bother looking too hard. As a matter of fact, 4 of my previous identities are presumed dead, just lost in the mess I leave behind. I'm headed to a new town, a new batch of unsuspecting bar patrons, and a new crappy apartment. I only keep a single molar from each number. I keep any identifying information on me at all times, and I don't ever leave my phone or laptop anywhere, keeping those all in a nondescript backpack. Other than the molars, the entirety of numbers 33 and 34 are in my apartment, albeit not in one piece. Significant pieces of numbers 29 to 32 will be found. I like to read the theories people come up with as the bizarre details come out. I have great fun thinking of new ways to confuse the investigators. This time, I laid the scalp of each number and a random digit on their own shelf in the kitchen cabinets, like a display in a museum. I also placed eyeballs in the corner of rooms like one would hang a camera. The last place I lived, I put the dissected lips of each number in the air vents, opened as wide as they could stretch, fastened to the metal so air passed forcefully past them. I like to think of it as them still screaming. I always leave when one of my well-meaning, named neighbors sees too much. They are always left intact, molars and all. I feel sorry for them, especially Charles. He made such Wonderell blueberry muffins. "It's freezing," my girlfriend murmured, shivering. I unwound the wool scarf from my neck and draped it over her shoulders. "Oh, stop," she said, though she was smiling. "Now you'll be the one who's cold." "I'm not cold," I lied, as we walked together toward the factory. It had been abandoned for years, a huge, half-collapsed structure out here in the middle of nowhere. The ground around us was white with snow, our shadows thrown long and dark on the ground by the orange-white glow of a street lamp that was somehow still working. It wasn't late, but the day was dark and grim. No one else was around, and the snow ahead of us was a perfect, unbroken sheet. "Think the rumors are true?" I asked, touching her shoulder and making her jump. She let out a little shriek and pushed me. "Well, they'd better be. We're exploring a haunted place. It'd be pretty boring if there was nothing here. We reached the factory entrance. On one side, the place, glass panels of the door were smashed out. On the other, it was boarded up, the wood now covered in graffiti. A crudely spray-painted white puppet with a leering face dominated the boards, with an ominous warning scrawled in black ink beneath it. "Don't be controlled. Don't be controlled," I whispered in Laura's ear, which made her giggle and push me away again. Her smile faded as we stepped through the factory's gaping doorway, the door that led into the unknown. "Well," I said, "ready to go in?" "Yeah," she said, glancing back one last time. "Yeah, let's go in." So we went inside. I took the handle of the inner door, wrestled with it for a moment, and managed to pry it open just a foot or so. We had to squeeze through the gap into the darkness. The whistle of the winter wind was a constant drone, followed by the shuddering of metal as we moved down the corridor and deeper inside, through shattered doorways. There were portraits hanging on the walls of the main hall, completely caked in dust and faded, with only a few shapes still visible. We stopped to look at them, or what was left of them, trying to imagine what they once were. One of the faded images looked a bit like a man with his arms outstretched. Another looked like a coiled rope. I tried brushing away the dust, but it didn't help. "This place gives me the creeps," Laura whispered. "What do you think they used to do here?" "I have no idea," I answered, as we passed through the hall and into the factory's main ground floor room. Strangely, for a place so long abandoned, it wasn't completely empty. All around us were bizarre old machines I couldn't recognize. Fittings, bolts, and pistons littered the floor, also covered in thick layers of dust. A horrifying chill ran through me as I suddenly noticed a cluster of pale figures in the corner, watching us in silence. But they were only mannequins, faceless and useless. I breathed a sigh of relief. Laura saw them too, and caught my expression. She gave me a gentle nudge. "Those things didn't scare you, did they?" I turned to her and shook my head, which made her laugh. "This is insane," she murmured as we walked around, our footsteps kicking up little clouds of dust. On the walls, there was more of the strange graffiti. Outside, it had looked odd. In here, in the gloom with only the weak beams of our flashlights, it looked like something from a nightmare. Huge, malevolent puppets were drawn in rough black ink, their eyes wide and round, staring at us with grins that stretched from ear to ear, revealing white teeth that seemed to glow in the dark. Some of them had their own puppets, controlled by strings attached to their fingertips. We weren't laughing anymore. Laura reached for my hand and held it tight. "Come on," she said. "Let's keep exploring." And so we did, past rows of broken machines and another pile of toppled mannequins. We had to slip through a set of rusted double doors, pushing them open and passing through. We entered a new section of the factory in even worse shape than the last. A section of the ceiling had collapsed, and through the hole you could see ductwork and a faint sliver of silver light. Tiny snowflakes drifted down through the cracks in the roof, dusting the already grimy floor and machines in front of us. "This is great," I told her. "What do you think? The atmosphere is terrifying." I was cut off by something shifting ahead of us with a small puff of dust. A wooden plank slipped, making a faint clicking noise. We stared into the deep shadows where the sound had come from. Laura and I were both completely silent. Then, the silence was broken by a voice from the corner. "Nothing to worry about. Hello there." I went cold as a shadow emerged from behind the rubble, though I soon realized it was just a guy. He had a camera in one hand, and he raised the other in a small wave. I could feel Laura relax beside me, her grip on my arm loosening. "Hey," I called out. He was a skinny guy with pale skin, and he had two strange black bars painted above and below each of his eyes, crossing his eyelids. "You two all right?" he asked, walking clumsily toward us. He stepped on an unsteady plank and stumbled, lurching in our direction. Laura caught one of his arms, and I caught the one holding the camera. "Damn, sorry," he muttered, pulling his hands back and retrieving his camera. He gave us a nod. "Thanks. Didn't mean to scare you. I just come here sometimes to take photos." He held up his camera before letting it dangle from his chest again. "What are you two doing here? Exploring?" "Yeah," I said. "Nice to meet you. I'm Gary. This is—" "Hi," she said. "Hey," the guy said. "I'm Ches." "Ches?" He nodded. "It's French. Listen, you've got to be really careful in here, you know? This place isn't like other mystery spots people explore. Trust me." I looked at his eyes. "Why do you have that paint on your face?" He gave a slight nod. "It helps cut the glare from the flash. Better vision in the dark. It's important, especially in the factory. Want some? It helps a lot." I watched, curious, as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tray of black ink. He opened it and dipped his finger in. And before either of us could answer, he was reaching for Laura's face. She took a step back. "No, I'm good." She shot me a confused look. I didn't know what this guy's deal was, but I wasn't taking any chances. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was better if we just left. "Nice meeting you, Ches, but you're right. We should probably get going." Ches's eyes suddenly widened. They were a pale blue, made starker by the black paint. He wasn't looking at us. He was looking between us. He suddenly lunged forward, standing in front of us, staring into the darkness ahead. Something was wrong. "Get back," he said quietly, then louder. "Both of you, get back!" He half turned and shoved Laura by the shoulder, pushing her back a few steps. He looked at me, indicating I should do the same. "What the hell is it?" I whispered, but he held up a hand to silence me. We watched, our breath catching in our throats, as a strange noise echoed through the factory, and from the darkness, a grotesque shadow came crawling. It was coming through the same rusted double doors Laura and I had just passed through. "Oh my God," I mumbled. Laura was shaking, clinging to my arm. The shadowy creature became clearer as it moved into the slivers of light, and the only way I can describe it is that it looked like a giant rat, or something wearing the skin of a rat. Because it was big, too big for the skin to contain it. It was horrible. "Shit!" Laura screamed as panic began to set in. I stumbled backward and started looking around for anything to use as a weapon. Ches calmly stepped forward and raised his camera. With a perfectly aimed shot, the flash went off, right in the monster's eyes. It shrieked and staggered back, tripping over a pile of bricks and scrap metal on the floor. Quick as lightning, Ches darted forward, grabbed the nearest brick, and smashed it hard over the monster's head with a sickening crack. Black fluid sprayed from the wound. The creature gave one last hiss and fell still. There was a moment of stunned, horrified silence. Laura and I were both crouched low to the ground, our eyes wide. Ches dropped the brick, grabbed the creature by its tail, and began dragging it across the floor toward the patch of light from the ceiling. "Ches," I called out. "Ches, what the hell are you doing?" But he didn't answer until he had dragged the huge creature fully into the light. Then he let go of its tail and stood there for a moment. "Look," he said, pointing at the giant rat. "Think about what you've seen. The graffiti on the walls. Now look at this. Look at it." My heart was pounding. I moved closer, squinting, taking in every detail of the dead creature. And then, something in my brain clicked, like a switch had been flipped. Now I could see the monster for what it truly was. In the space of a few seconds, it went from being a huge, filthy, dead rat to being a puppet. I could see the joints in its neck, at its jaw. I saw the mechanism of its legs connected to what was now clearly a man-made torso. And his eyes weren't real, not anymore. They were fake, glowing stones set into a skull. "It's a puppet," I said. "What is this?" I asked Ches, and he smiled. "I've been here many times," he whispered in the dark, as snowflakes continued to drift down from the ceiling. "I've seen it, glimpses. The puppeteer, he looks like a cloud, a thick cloud that hangs in the air, like he's haunting the factory." He tapped his camera. "And I'm going to find him. I'm going to find him." I started backing away, slow and steady, still holding on to Laura. Right?" I said. "Great. You do that, man, but I think we've got to go." "Are you sure?" he asked, tilting his head. "The puppeteer loves visitors." His voice was quiet, but somehow carried. "I might just find him tonight. You're welcome to join me." Laura looked between us. "We're okay," she said, her voice trembling. "Thanks, though." And with that, we turned and ran. Not toward Ches, but back the way we had come, through the doors the rat creature had just emerged from. Through the long, dark, machine-filled corridors. Ches called after us. "Hey, wait!" But we kept running. We ran around a corner and through dark, web-filled rooms. We saw an old, unlit emergency exit sign. Its green glow faded to a grim gray, promising a way out. We followed it through a room. This room was full of mannequins and puppets. Most of them were featureless and indistinct, but a terrible fear pricked at me every time I glimpsed a face in the mess, a carved smile, wide and soulless eyes glinting in the dark where there was no light. The path out was blocked by rubble, so we took another connecting corridor, pushing through piles of grotesque puppets. It was as I was running past a cabinet of wooden and silicone reptile replicas that the floor gave way beneath me like a trapdoor. The boards were rotten, and the second I stepped on them, they splintered and broke, sending me falling onto a bed of broken glass. Wood and concrete dust billowed around me. "Gary!" Laura screamed from above, panicked. I had fallen through, landing on what I realized was a mountain of puppets. I groaned, rolling to the side to avoid falling debris. "Gary!" she called, her down again. "Are you okay?" I coughed, sending dust flying from my face, then looked up at the hole I'd fallen through, a dim light shining down. "I'm fine," I called up. "I'm okay, Laura. Just get out, okay? Just get out and wait for me in the car, Laura. I'm okay, right? You go on ahead. I'll meet you outside. Don't wait for me." After a moment's hesitation, she did as I said and disappeared from view. I cleared my throat and looked around, trying to get my bearings as I staggered to my feet. The panic had made me reckless. I tried to steady my heartbeat as my eyes adjusted to the darkness of the room. "Okay, nothing to fear. Just stay calm and find a way out. No need to rush. Just be careful and aware," I muttered to myself, moving slowly through the gloom. As my eyes adjusted and the room took shape, I saw pipes and posters and puppets. As I walked, I kicked a pile of heads. One of them broke free and rolled in a circle in front of me. I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be, not human. At least, not in this light. But not any animal I recognized either. I shuddered and stepped past it, turning a corner into a wider room. There was a light in here, faint, but it was something. It was the dim, flickering orange glow of an LED strip attached to a workbench. Blueprints were pinned to the walls all around, and I jumped as I saw the shape of something standing in the corner. "Jesus," I breathed, then calmed myself as I realized it was just another puppet. It was suspended by strings from the ceiling. They were incredibly fine, almost invisible if not for the way the orange light caught them. This puppet wasn't human-shaped either. It was tall and gangly, thin but at least 7 feet tall. Its feet hovered a few inches from the floor, and its head was tilted to one side. It had no eyes, and its neck was unnaturally long. Its mouth took up half of what could be considered its face. Its jaw hung open to reveal the darkness inside, punctuated by sharp, black, and red things fitted where teeth should be. I hated it. The flickering light was playing tricks on me, making it seem as if the creature in the corner was twitching slightly. I thought of the rat monster from upstairs. "Don't you move," I whispered, hugging the opposite wall as I crept toward the door ahead. "Don't you dare move, you bastard!" I moved as quietly and slowly as I could, making my way to the far side of the room. I placed a hand on a table behind me to steady myself, just in case I slipped or tripped, while the thing waited in the corner. A monstrous puppet, a nightmare in the flickering light. "Please," I thought. "Please don't move." And just as I reached the door, I lifted my hand from the table, and it overbalanced and crashed to the floor with a loud bang. I flinched and froze in terror as the objects on it clattered across the floor, each sound echoing through the room. The sounds stopped. For a moment, there was a clicking, jingling response. The puppet's head began to move jerkily in the darkness. I was rooted to the spot, frozen, as its strings began to move, pulling it into motion. The thing was swaying from side to side, gently, left to right, left to right. Then there was a loud clack as it was lowered from its suspended position. Its 2 feet stood on the floor. I watched as it began to turn its eyeless face toward me, its jaw cracking open to reveal its sharp teeth. I didn't dare run. The creature was obviously aware of my presence, but I didn't know if it could see me. With wide eyes and bated breath, I moved carefully, silently, out of the room. Cautiously, I stepped through the doorway and into a long corridor, not daring to speed up, but moving at a steady pace. A noise, like a growl or a cough mixed with the sound of grinding metal, echoed from the room behind me, and it chilled me to the bone. I tried to move faster, and one of my feet landed on a rotten plank. It snapped with a loud crack, hitting the wall beside it, and the growl from the room became a roar. I lost my nerve, abandoned all attempts at stealth, and ran as fast as I could down the corridor, looking for a door, a staircase, anything. I ran, sweating, through the dark, past concrete and scrap metal. I ran past a single red light, like a beacon or an emergency warning light. Ahead of me was a very long, narrow hallway. I tried to run through it as quickly as possible. A vision of mechanical arms bursting through the walls to grab me flashed through my mind, but thankfully, it wasn't real. The creature behind me, however, was. At the far end of the hall, I turned to look back at the shuffling darkness pursuing me, and illuminated by the red light was the horrifying puppet. It was so large it was scraping the sides of the corridor, forcing and pushing its body through. The sound of metal on concrete was deafening. It let out a low, aggressive roar as it came for me. I could see the strings on it now, attached to its joints, but I couldn't see what they were connected to. I didn't waste time trying to figure it out. "Help!" I screamed desperately, looking for any way to escape. "Oh God, someone please! Ches, help me, please!" At the end of the hall was a room. It was completely dark, except for a single locked wooden door. Broken puppets were strewn across the floor and leaning against the walls, some shaped like animals, some like creatures I didn't recognize, others like small children. My heart hammered as the creature got closer. The sound of scraping concrete, of heavy, stumbling footsteps, grew louder and louder. I ran to the door and tried to open it. It was locked tight. Shit! I tried again, looking around for a key but unable to focus. I couldn't think. There wasn't even a keyhole. Next to the door was a desk. I tore open its drawers. They were filled with papers, glue guns with ink cartridges, pens, spools of wire, and dust. Always dust. Nothing else. The metal scraping was closer, louder. I looked in terror toward the dark doorway to the hall. Any second now, the monster would burst through. I planted one foot behind me and kicked the door as hard as I could, right next to the handle. The door boomed and shuddered, but it didn't move. I tried again, with all my strength, and again it let out a loud bang, sending dust puffing from the cracks. But it held firm. The scraping was right on top of me. I could hear his footsteps just outside, thudding on the floor. I could hear his ragged breathing from that disgusting jaw. I turned and saw his shadow on the wall. I screamed and kept kicking the door. Once, twice, 3 times, but it wouldn't budge. I turned and pressed my back against the door, pure terror flooding me as the puppet closed in. It was so tall, its twisted body moving in jerky, unnatural ways. Its jaw was open wide, revealing its sharp teeth, with black liquid dripping from between them. And then it sped up. I don't know how it knew I was there, but it knew. It strode toward me out of the darkness, its hungry sounds growing louder in my ears. Then, suddenly, the door behind me opened. I stumbled backward through it, into where I didn't know, watching in shock as the monster lunged. And then the door slammed shut, and Laura was there, rushing to the door to slide a bolt back into place. She turned and held my face in her hands as the monster thudded against the door. "Are you okay?" she said. I nodded, still in shock. Okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. She took my hand and led me to a staircase. We went up, back into the dim light of the factory floor. Ches was there and nodded at me. You were stupid to run, he said, looking past me with his camera held tight. But actually, I think you're right. It's time for you to go. Go on, back the way you came. I couldn't speak. I couldn't get the image of the monster from the basement out of my head. Its warped, shuddering body, the gaping jaw, the strings you could only see in the light. We went back into the hall with the hole in the ceiling, where the silver light streamed through and a thin layer of ice coated the ground. And the scene seemed to happen in slow motion. Ches slowed his walk. He turned to face us, reaching into his pocket for something. He stopped, looking from me to Laura, and our eyes met. The tension built until it broke with a sad sigh. Ches stepped to the side, clearing a path for us. I didn't quite understand the significance of that moment. My mind a blur of confusion and curiosity. Why had he stopped? You know the way out, he said softly. And make sure you never come back. Thanks, man, I managed to reply, and then we ran. Laura and I ran back the way we had come. I glanced back one last time before we went through the doors, back into the machine room, back through the room with the dusty paintings, and then out. We wasted no time getting to my car, starting the engine and driving away, leaving the factory behind us. I saw something else too, As we were leaving, when I looked back that final time, in the silver light from the hole in the ceiling, I saw Ches, and at his joints were strings, attached to a shadowy cloud that hung across the ceiling. I watched as the strings on his neck and head pulled, and he turned to watch us go. I heard the soft, sad whirring of gears from inside his body. I saw the strings on his hand as he raised it to adjust his camera, and I saw a shadow pass over his face, making him disappear from view as the door swung shut. I still have dreams about that factory sometimes, but Laura has it worse. I can hear her muttering in her sleep, whispering in fear. I often have to wake her up so she doesn't get stuck in the nightmares. And sometimes, on some nights, she swears she can feel something hooked into her joints. Something unseen in the dark, trying to pull her from the bed and away.